All right. Today I thought we'd discuss taxation and personal finance. Two lovely ladies whose life pretty much revolves around those themes. Pleased to welcome onto the show Niyati Thaker and SayaliRai. Hi, ladies. Good to see you. I hope your families are safe and healthy. Sayali.
Yes, they are. Thank you so much, Rishi. It's a tough time, but we're staying indoors, not going anywhere, and staying safe.
Likewise for you, Niyati, I hope.
Yes, all good, Rishi. Thank you for asking. Hope everything's good at your end as well.
Thank you for checking in. So far, so good. Yes. Financial year end, ladies, and people go scrambling. What are investments that are tax deductible? Let's talk about that first. And then we shall get into people who missed making those investments. So, Niyati, let's start with you, please.
Right. So, Section 80C is one of the most popular and favorite sections amongst the taxpayers because it allows a maximum deduction of about 1.5 lakh rupees from your entire taxable income, right?
Yeah.
So, how do you sort of get to this entire 1.5 lakhs? There's a couple of ways to do it. One is investments, okay, which I'll get to a little later. The other is some options which you can consider, like your LIC premiums, maybe your children's tuition fees, home loans, where you repay the principal amount and stuff like that. Okay, so a combination of these can be used towards getting to that 1.5 lakhs, right? When I talk about investments, there's I we like to categorize them as long-term and short-term options. Okay, only because the long-term options are sort of locked in for over 15 years.
Sure.
Yeah. So based on a liquidity requirement, you sort of need to figure out whether you need to go in for a long-term option or a short-term option, right? So long-term option has a variety of stuff like PPF, your Public Provident Fund, or your VPF, Voluntary Provident Fund. NPS is also an option, the National Pension Scheme, right? So these are long-term options which are locked in up till 15 years or up until retirement, right? The other category of investments, which are the short-term options under ATC, are the post office scheme, okay, which is essentially locked in for only 5 years. Tax-free FDs, right? So FDs are also usually about 5-year tax-free FDs you can opt for. And there's something called ELSS, which is an equity-linked savings scheme, right? So what this does is that it basically invests a certain portion into equity-linked instruments like the stock market, right? And this is locked in only for about 3 years. So if you're looking for like slightly higher returns, if your risk-taking ability is a little higher, then you can definitely opt for ELSS, which ensures two things. One is the lower lock-in period, and two is better returns in terms of it being linked to equity markets.
For people who missed out on investments that are tax deductible, Niyati, what are options through which they can still gain the benefits of Section 80C?
Right, like I said, there's a couple of things last minute. If you don't have the time to make your investments, you can look at a couple of things, okay? For example, your LIC premiums, okay? So your medical insurance premiums. For example, your home loan, for example, repayment of the principal amount of your home loan. That is also tax deductible in this 1.5 lakhs. Payments of your children's tuition fee, that's also tax deductible. So if you've not made your investments in time, like before 31st of March, you can definitely look at a few of these options to sort of, reach that 1.5 lakh limit.
Nice. Post 1st April is also when one sets goals for the new financial year. Sayali, how would you advise us to go about that?
So I think financial goals can be a little tricky. What happens is we get into this motion of, oh, I want to save money, I want to invest, but done sort of haphazardly, it can really go wrong. Like you may not get what you intend to with that amount. You may not get the kind of return you expected, etc. if you don't have set goals. So setting goals is very important. And we believe that honestly, just start with just writing it down. It can be as simple as going for a holiday, and it can be as absurd as buying a vacation home. It can be like completely poles apart, and you may not have any money to pay towards the down payment of that. But it's a goal, right? That's what you work towards. So I suggest start writing them down and then categorize them into short term, long term, short term, medium term, and long term. Short-term goals can be similar, like going on a holiday within India, outside. Outside is a little difficult right now, but still. Buying a car. Medium term could be maybe buying a house, paying off a loan, your children's education, maybe. Long term usually is the ultimate goal, which is retirement. And yeah, so once you have them categorized, then you can sort of backtrack and look at investment options which work for that timeline and the kind of corpus you would need for that particular goal. And then you can backtrack and figure out what you have to do today. So that's why having those financial goals and sort of, you know, having them marked out on a timeline is very important.
Yeah, so now let's backtrack and do that. You already told us about the short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals as far
Mm,
as saving tax is
mm,
concerned. Now, from a
mm.
larger perspective, Niyati, like what Sayali talked
Right.
about our life, short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, some instruments we can use where we can put our money, please.
Right. So, Rishi, there are tons and tons of financial instruments that are available out there. It's important for you to sort of pick and choose what actually fits your goals, right? So, for example, like Saili said, you have a short term goal. For short term goal, you need the money to be a little bit more liquid. You need it to be accessible. For that, you can like look at FDs, you can look at money market funds, you can look at liquid funds. These will all be very liquid in nature, so that they ensure that you get the money, as soon as within 24 hours, right? Um, for your longer term goals, there's a couple of other options that you can consider. Obviously, longer term, if your risk taking ability is a little bit higher, you can look at short term income funds, you can look at corporate bond funds. These funds at least beat inflation. You can look at tax free bonds. So these help in sort of at least beating inflation. At the same time, you're not taking too much risk that comes with equity funds or equity instruments, or say, for example, stocks, right? So these can be sort of used towards your midterm goals. And then finally, for your long-term goals, you can definitely look at stocks, you can look at index funds, you can look at equity mutual funds, right? Because equity mutual funds or stocks are a little bit longer term in nature. It's a story that sort of plays out over the long term, and within a short time period, you never know where you're caught with market volatility, right? So these can sort of be used to sort of fulfill your longer term goals. These instruments. Of course, there's something we call alternate options, right? So those are sort of your gold bonds or your private equity investments or your REITs, like your real estate investment trusts. So these also can be used towards, they can form a certain part of your asset allocation, and you can use these to like sort of fulfill some of your goals.
Sadly, a lot of people have a very flawed relationship with debt about mounting
Mm,
loans. And
yeah.
I find that you guys have a lot of clarity as far as that is concerned. One's attitude towards loans, how one should tackle one's loans and debt. A bit about that, please.
Um, I so honestly, the ideal situation is always not to have a mountain of debt. But realistically speaking, yes, okay, you're here, you have a mountain of debt. What do you do about it? There are two types of debt. One is there are two types of debt that we like to sort of segregate. One is credit card debt, and the other is any other debt, which is usually long term. So your credit card debt, we genuinely have to say this one thing. Please, please, please don't only make the minimum amount due payments. Always go for the entire amount, because you end up paying monstrous interest on it. And it's unfair to you and it's not worth it. So try to use credit cards only as much as you can pay the entire amount at the end of the month, because otherwise you'll be taking on debt which you won't even realize sometimes. And the other part of like the other section of debt, which is like home loans or personal loans or car loans, all of that. What happens is usually when you're buying that house or that car, it's an exciting thing. It's fine, like you can manage it, but then suddenly it all piles up. How do you tackle it going forward? There are two ways to do it. Start with the smallest debt first. That's the first option, where you sort of create a debt snowball. Somebody's called it that, and we really like the analogy. So the smallest one, the chotu one, go for it first, so that you get this sense of achievement that okay, fine, one loan is done, out of the way. on to the next one, and then keep doing that until you sort of finish off all your debts. At the same time, when you're tackling one, you have to make sure that minimum payments are being done on the rest, because you don't want to default on any. The second option is, some people say that, smallest debt first may not make sense for them because they're paying a lot of interest on other loans. So the second option is to start with the debt with the most interest rate that you're paying. So, overall, you don't end up paying a lot of interest, but it may be a little haphazard because the amounts may differ. So you may not be able to sort of take care of it immediately, and you may not find that sense of achievement, but you may end up paying lesser interest overall. So whatever works for you. So yeah, these are the two ways that we like to tackle that.
Niyati, in the West, people live Friday to Friday. I mean, they, get their weekly pay and they just concentrate on blowing it up. In India, it's the other extreme. I mean, we let our funds lie around in savings bank accounts. And you want to emphasize what a monster inflation is and how wrong that is, just leaving funds lying around in a savings bank account.
Absolutely. You've actually, very aptly put it. Indians love to just leave their money lying around in a savings account or an FD, and FD barely even beats inflation. So it's kind of like your money is eroding as opposed to growing. So, Rishi, we did this study a couple of weeks ago where, we said that if somebody had 50,000 rupees in the year 2000, what is it worth today? Okay. If you put it as cash onto the mattress, it's literally worth 15,000 rupees. So your 50,000 has become 15,000. That means your money has actually eroded. Okay. If you bought real estate, your 50,000 rupees would have become 5 lakhs today, which is a 10x increase in 20 years. If you bought gold, it would have been 5.5 lakh rupees, which is a 11.5% increase. And if you simply put it in an index fund, which is basically something which copies the Nifty or the Sensex, it would have been worth almost 7 lakh rupees today. So that's about a 13.5% increase over 20 years. So I think this kind of sums it up. Putting it just leaving it around as cash under the mattress is literally, gonna make your money erode as opposed to grow. And I feel like investing is the way to do it. Which investment vehicle you choose sort of depends. But keeping it lying around in your savings account or as cash does not work at all.
Everybody wants to retire early. It's our dream to have that house by the beach. What if someone says, I know that 60 is the official retirement age in this country, but I want to retire at 50. Are there any thumb rules, Sayali, to calculate how much one needs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, there are a couple. So the two that we like the most are, the first thing is, you want to retire early, save more. Simple, as simple as that. There's no way around it. It's like how they talk about getting fit. You have to control your diet and you have to exercise. There's no overnight solution to it. You have to work hard for it. So it's the same thing. There is a assumption. There's a thumb rule that says based on the rate at which you save money, you can tell when you can retire. For example, if you save 15% of your income, it'll take you 35 years to retire. If you save 30%, it'll take you 24 years to retire. If you save 45% of your annual income, it'll take you only 17 years to retire. And obviously, this is all based on a couple of assumptions, like a steady 7% annual interest rate for all your investments. And this saving I'm talking about is saving and investing. It's not like Niyati said, it's not putting it under the mattress. So yeah, I want to start retirement early, save more. The second thumb rule is it says that retirement is not an age, it's a number. So when you hit that number, you can retire. Doesn't matter if you're 50, 45 or 65. It says your annual expenses multiplied by 25 should give you your retirement number. Approximately 25x of your annual expenses. Yes. And these annual expenses are sort of projected to what you think you will require. It's not today. It's like, for example, if you're thinking at 30, what my annual expenses are, 25x of that That's your current lifestyle. If you want to project it 15 years down the line, then yes, assume that. The funny thing is, both these rules sort of assume this withdrawal rate. So you have this corpus, you save this much money, but what about after retirement? When do you think this will last? How long do you think it will last for?
Yeah, actually,
As,
you pretty much preempted my next question, which is, one is retiring in style, but
Mhm.
then the constant worry is that money actually going to be enough?
Yes,
So you have to withdraw money. So withdrawing enough so that you don't need to actually sit and make more money. Otherwise, you're not retired technically.
correct,
So,
absolutely.
so the corollary to that question would really be, what's a safe withdrawal rate? What would that be? So yeah, continue.
Yes, sorry, I sort of preempted it. But the safe withdrawal rate is actually 4%. So your entire invested corpus, if you withdraw only 4% of it in a year, and leave the rest invested. If you're not removing the entire amount, you're just removing 4% of it and letting the rest of the amount grow. So what we're assuming is that inflation and your investment corpus is going to grow more than 4%. So even if you remove that 4%, what it's going to do is it's going to allow that corpus to grow further so that you essentially never run out of money. And whenever these thumb rules sort of talk about retirement, they don't say that, acha, after this, you never have to work again. It's up to you. Like, I know my grandmother, she still works at 75 because she loves doing what she does. It's up to you how long you want to work. It's just, we're talking about retirement as a concept, which means that you're in a state of financial freedom, that you don't have to worry about where your next paycheck is coming from or whether next month your income is going to be sufficient. It's a state of zen. It's a state of financial zen. That's what
Very well put.
we like to call retirement.
Listen, I follow you guys on social media, and for those of you who are listening, watching at Fin Cocktail, we will talk about that in a bit, at Fin Cocktail. And I noticed that you've done a wonderful analogy. I mean, we're a brand obsessed world, Niyati. You guys have done a wonderful analogy of spending on brands versus buying stocks in the brand. Fab comparison, and I'd leave you to tell the end of that story.
Right. So, let's say, for example, back in 2006, you spent 5 lakhs on buying a Maruti Suzuki Swift, right? Today, that is essentially worth nothing because of depreciation, right? At the same time, if you had chosen to buy stock worth 5 lakh of Maruti Suzuki in the year 2006, today it would have literally been sitting at a value of 50 lakhs. So that's literally a tenfold increase in the stock value, right? Um, this is not to say that you don't have to spend on things that you may actually need or want. Everybody has needs and wants, and everybody needs to spend on things from time to time. But what I'm trying to say is that, for example, your budget for buying a car is 15 lakhs. Then just step down a little bit, buy a 10 lakh car, and buy stock worth good quality stock worth that additional 5 lakhs, right? You'll be better off 10 years down the line because your car will literally be worth nothing back in 10 years, but the stock will definitely be worth something if you're invested in the good quality stocks. So that's
It's such a cliche to turn around and say equity mutual funds, they are sexy, they are in, and things like that. But I like that you guys say that debt mutual funds are attractive too. And you do have your reasons. Niyati, would you share them?
absolutely. So like I said, everybody's return expectations, risk appetite, liquidity requirement, everything is very different from person to person, right? So we like debt mutual funds from a couple of different reasons, right? One is for diversification. It literally shields your portfolio from the volatility of equity investments. So it brings that stability. It allows your portfolio to grow at a steady rate, and there's not much fluctuation or volatility involved. So from a diversification perspective, it's a great investment. Second is from risk management. Like I said, the equity is high risk, high return. Debt becomes low risk, low return. So obviously there's different expectations of return for people, right? For some people, capital preservation is of paramount, like it's of paramount importance. They don't want to lose their capital at any cost. For this reason, I think debt mutual funds work wonderfully, or any kind of debt investment works wonderfully. And third, I like debt mutual funds because they provide regular income. So, for example, if you're invested in a tax-free bond or a debt mutual fund or a corporate bond, they'll pay you a weekly, fortnightly, monthly, or semi-annual kind of interest, right? So, for people looking for this regular income stream, it's a great option of investment.
Sayali, Niyati at the top mentioned index funds very briefly, but we didn't get into them. I'm going to actually combine two questions here, part A and part B. Part A would be index funds and what are they? What are their benefits? And how do I pick an index fund that's really suited for me?
Okay. So diving a little deep into index funds, what index funds are essentially, they're a mutual fund where the fund manager doesn't try to beat the index. They don't try to beat the Sensex or the Nifty. They don't try to outperform them. What they try to do is mimic their performance. They want to do as well as either the Sensex or the Nifty. And they do this by simply recreating the index that they are attempting to replicate in the same proportion. So if the Sensex, for example, has 30 stocks in different proportions, a Sensex index fund will basically just copy the same, will invest in the same companies in the same proportions. So that's how they try to mimic the performance that the Sensex or the Nifty provides. That's just one example of an index fund. There are a lot of them as well. What the benefits are, honestly, for newcomers, it's a great, for first-time investors, it's a great option because it provides a lot of diversification. You're not investing in one particular stock or one particular, you're not, investing in one particular fund manager where you may not know his history. You're investing in the entire market as essentially. It's low cost because it's a passive investment. So what happens is the expense ratio that we talk about, that is low. I'll explain about expense ratios in just a second. They have a good track record because over time, the Sensex and Nifty have gone up eventually. So they're a good long-term investment. And like I said, they're great for beginners because you don't have to worry too much. It's a good long-term sort of good equity exposure for your portfolio.
So how do I know what's good for me? I mean, the one
yes,
I pick that's suited for me.
Yes, how do you pick one? You have to do a couple of things. You have to look at two things. One is tracking error, and the second is expense ratio. Tracking error is basically a figure that tells you how close or far away from the index is the fund. So when they're trying to replicate a particular fund, the tracking error tells you how well they've replicated it or how badly. So the lower the better. As close to the index's performance the fund gets, that's better for you because they're just trying to replicate it. And expense ratio is essentially the maintenance charges that the fund puts on to you as an investor. And an expense ratio basically includes like a lot of operating costs, management fees, blah, blah, blah. So that also, because it's a cost to you and it's going to erode from your, it's going to erode from your return, lower the better. So lower tracking error and lower expense ratio. This information is available online, and the tracking error can be found in any fact sheet of any fund that you're trying to invest in. So yeah, it's pretty simple. You just have to do some research and you'll be fine.
Why do you call your outfit Fin Cocktail? I find it very fascinating. And what really is Fin Cocktail's aim, Sayali?
Okay, so it's a funny story. Don't judge me, but it all started because we love gin cocktails. And I wanted to put a good spin on it. It had to be fun because the moment you say the word finance, people just run away. They're scared, they're stressed. They're like, oh my God, she's going to give me a lecture now. I am not. I'm trying to make finance accessible. I'm trying to make it easy. I'm trying to break it down and demystify it. And how else to demystify it than to explain that, it's going to be fun. So I'm going to try and cook up this, mix up this nice cocktail for you with different financial instruments. So yeah, that's how Fin Cocktail sort of came up.
And the idea of using music and reels in social media to convey financial literacy, I mean, that's got to be a first. I mean, people are using reels for all kinds of other entertainment purposes. It's unique, it's fun. Whose idea was it, and how are people reacting to it, conveying financial literacy through the reels, through the music?
Honestly, the idea sort of came up because we were doing our research, and I must confess it was getting a little stressful because our content was not picking up as much. So what we realized was that whenever you browse through reels, etc., Instagram seemed to be when TikTok was banned in India, for example, Instagram pushed out reels, and it's really pushing the entire platform. So I guess that's when we decided that we have to be on reels. And then music, why? Because I love it. I love music in the background. And even when, like, for example, if we're doing something, we're doing some research or trying to figure out a study, there's always some music in the background. And then I thought, like, why not try to add some music to it, so to make it even more fun than already it is. The feedback, it's been, I guess, it's picked up. So clearly people are liking it. Our audience, 80% of them really love the kind of reels that we do, and most of them really appreciate the value that we bring to them. But there are a few who say that, can you just shut off the music and can you just tell me what you're trying to say? So I guess there are always those people who just want us to get to the point. But hopefully we'll also try to come up with some more content on maybe a different platform for them.
No, it's fabulous. And Fin Cocktail's aim would be what? You start off with personal finance, involve HNIs, portfolio management. Just a bit, please.
FinCocktail's aim primarily was, so when it began, FinCocktail was genuinely just a way to demystify finance. It was a financial literacy platform that we wanted to build. That aim is still very much alive. Hopefully, someday we will be in schools, universities, trying to bring financial literacy to young people, basic courses. Yes, on the other hand, yes, sure, we also hopefully will have our consulting arm where we deal with HNIs and maybe someday manage portfolios as well.
Niyati, just a bit about your background. Everything that you've traversed, your path leading up to this. I believe you spent some time in wealth management. Just a bit about that, please.
Yes. So like I said, right out of school, I knew finance was the subject for me, and obviously, I got my degree in business administration from Kingston University in London. After that, I came back and I pursued CFA, which is Chartered Financial Analyst, and I got through all three levels of that. After that, I took up a job in investment banking, which turns out I wasn't very interested in. So obviously, I quit that, and then I joined ASK Wealth Advisors as a private banker. And that's when I actually learned a whole lot about wealth management, about managing portfolios, about dealing with HNIs. And I've literally I spent 5 years of my life learning, and after that, Fin Cocktail. That's my journey.
You want to add to that, Sayali? Your background. You've also spent some time in investment banking.
Yes, I have. I unlike Niyati, I did not know finance was the thing for me from a younger age. I did a whole lot of things. So I went to NYU right out of school. I went to NYU Stern School of Business. I did my bachelor's degree in finance and marketing. I came back. I worked in a couple of places in marketing roles. I was even at Nika when it was just beginning. Then I realized that yes, you know what, finance. We're boiling it down to that. And then I went to do my MBA at Babson College. Did that in finance. I did a level of CFA as well when I was there. And then I came back, worked at Citibank for a couple of years in their investment banking division. It was that's where I learned a lot. But I also learned that, it's so stuffy, so male dominated, and just so not accessible for anybody. And I guess that made me quit. And Fin Cocktail was founded. Yeah, I founded Fin Cocktail in August of last year. You don't know this, but me and Niyati actually know each other since we were, what, 10, 11 years old?
10, 11,
Your
yeah.
childhood friends.
Yeah.
That's lovely. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You also do a Sunday brunch section on your Fin Cocktail Facebook and Instagram. Tell us about that, Sayali.
So Sunday brunch it stems from the entire Fin Cocktail, gin cocktails kind of things. So we just thought Sunday brunch would be a nice extension of the analogy. What it is a wrap up. It's a weekly wrap up of all the major financial news that has happened in the past week that you may want to browse, looking forward to the Monday. So we thought Sunday is a good day to do this because during the week, everybody's stressed and, worried about their own work and doing a lot on their own. So Sunday is some day that they may have some bandwidth to absorb all that's happened in the financial world. And since our aim is financial literacy, we're trying to get this information out to the people who wouldn't usually pick up the financial page of the newspaper and sort of browse through it. So we're trying to get that out there.
I thought we'd do a section on cryptocurrencies and crypto art. Niyati, let's start with crypto art and NFTs. There's a lot of buzz around the two. Please explain that. And just for interest, how much are people willing to pay for pieces of crypto art?
Right. So this is literally the topic of this year, crypto art and NFTs. So let me just start by explaining a little bit about what crypto art is. It basically works by adding a unique signature to a digital file, okay? And thus making it a non-fungible token, which is NFT, right? The token holder is the one who literally owns the token. He can enjoy the value of the token, or he can sell it, or maybe he can gift it to someone else. This is like the most sort of basic explanation of NFTs. And this year has been absolutely crazy in terms of the kind of art which has been made and sold online. For example, one of the most expensive pieces that was sold this year is an art piece called Every Days from this artist called Beeple. And imagine or not, it was sold for $69 million. So it's yes. So it's basically this little NFT which he's created is a compilation of 5,000 of his first smaller NFTs. So 5,000 of his crypto arts all combined into one makes this art piece called Every Days, and that's something which was sold for $69 million.
That's crazy. And cryptocurrencies themselves, I mean, they're the hottest thing going around. How does one start investing in cryptocurrencies? Which is the best app to use, especially if you're a beginner, Niyati?
Right. So this is a very valid question because, cryptocurrencies have just about gained traction in our country. And there's a lot of people who want to sort of begin investments in cryptocurrencies. Let me tell you, it's very easy, okay? All it takes is for you to download an app, sort of just do your KYC on it, set up your wallet, and that's it. You're good to go. This can literally be done within like an hour, and you're good to like sort of invest in cryptocurrencies. As far as the apps go, there's lots of apps out there, but there's a few which I like, which are really beginner friendly. There's CoinDCX Go. There's Coinbase, there's something called ZebPay, there's something called WazirX. All of these are very beginner friendly, and it's absolutely easy to just set this up and get going within an hour.
Some vital facts about Bitcoins or BTC, please give them to us. And it's also, there's so much of Chinese whispers going around, myths around cryptocurrencies. Let's also try and bust them.
Sure, sure. So just a few important things about the Bitcoin. One is that there's so much mystery around it because the founder of Bitcoin, the person who mined the first Bitcoin, is a person called Satoshi Nakamoto, and nobody literally knows the identity of this person. He is
Wow.
literally faceless. Nobody knows what he looks like, and nobody's seen him ever. So there's a lot of mystery around Bitcoin for this one particular reason. Also, the fact that there's only 21 million Bitcoins that will ever be mined. Okay. So there's obviously it's got a store of value because it's limited, it's scarce in nature, right? Bitcoin can work as a great inflation hedge. Okay, it could probably be the currency of the future because as we've heard in the news, a lot of institutions are sort of adopting and investing in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. So, for example, Tesla bought a huge chunk of Bitcoin a couple of months ago. There's Coca-Cola in Australia, which is accepting payments in Bitcoin. There's Burger King in Venezuela, which is accepting payments in Bitcoin. So there's PayPal, who is hugely invested in Bitcoin. So there's a lot of these really big, like large, reliable institutions who are sort of adopting cryptocurrencies, which is what sort of gives us a little bit of, reassurance and faith that this might be the currency of the future. Yeah, as far as myths about Bitcoin go, the first and the very it's the biggest myth that I'd like to debunk is that Bitcoin is banned in India. It's not banned in
It's
India so far. Okay. Lots of people keep talking about how it's banned and how do I invest if it's banned, and like what will be the repercussions of that. But technically, at this point in time, it's not banned in India. It's okay to invest in cryptocurrencies as long as you keep your asset allocation in mind. Okay, obviously, I'm not telling you to put everything that you own into cryptocurrencies. But if you're investing up to about 5 or 10% of your investment corpus, then that's fine. Like that's something that you can look at doing. The other myth is that Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency, which also is kind of false because there's about 4,000 plus cryptocurrencies out there. So Bitcoin definitely is the largest, but there's also another 4,000 cryptocurrencies that are available for
wow.
one to invest in or look at, right? And another myth that I'd like to debunk is that one has to buy an entire Bitcoin. Everybody feels that I need to buy an entire Bitcoin to sort of invest in Bitcoin, but that's absolutely false because you can buy a portion or a fraction of a Bitcoin. You can invest in Bitcoin with as little as 1,000 rupees. So that's something that these are a few very common myths around Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, which I felt people should be more informed and aware about.
Very lucidly explained. I see all these articles in financial magazines about CEOs and their net worth. And I've always wondered if we, as ordinary human beings, you and me, could find out our net worth. Sayali, is there a formula to do that for people with a steady income, calculating net worth?
Yes, there is. There is another thumb rule. But let me first clarify, net worth will always actually be your assets minus your liabilities.
Sure.
But if you want an on the go option, which is like, you're in a car, you're discussing this net worth, which is published about your Elon Musks of the world or whoever else, you can find out what should ideally be your net worth. It's a formula which is modified from something called the millionaire next door. It's modified to the Indian context. So it's your age multiplied by your pre-tax income divided by 20. Now, why your age? Because it assumes that, as you grow older, you will acquire more assets, reduce your liabilities, etc. It's a big assumption. Yes, we know, but it's an on-the-go formula. It's a thumb rule. Pre-tax income, obviously, because it depends. That helps you get to your net worth. And why 20? Because it works better for the Indian markets. It also says that there are a couple of ways you can modify it. Like, for example, if you're, for example, 40 years old, you have an annual income of like 30 lakhs, living in India. So then you should be worth about 60 lakhs. So yeah, it's an on the go thumb rule, which may be a nice conversation starter.
Lovely. Go and check them out. They are Fin Cocktail, FINCOCKTAIL, on both Instagram as well as Facebook. They really make personal finance, taxes, the micro and the macroeconomics of it so much fun. That's Niyati and Sayali. Listen, I had so much fun talking to you guys. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for
Thank
all
you.
the wonderful advice.
Thank
And
you so
rock
much for
on.
having us. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us. It was great being here.